Good morning, Richland County. It's 9:30 a.m. on Tuesday, December 5th. The Richland County Board of Commissioners is now in session. I'm County Commissioner Cliff Mears, joined by my fellow commissioners, Tony Barrow, Darrell Banks, our clerk, Stacy Crawl, County Administrator Andrew Keller. Mr. Morgenstern is here, as well as Josh Hicks from Maintenance, Jody Cachetti from Regional Planning, Jean Taddy, also from Regional Planning. And I'm afraid I don't know your friend.
I'm Christy Campbell with RLS and Associates.
And online we have Alan Carl.
Yes.
Okay. Well, our first order of business this morning is to talk about the Richland County Transportation Development Plan and final recommendations. So with that, I'll turn it over to Christy and Jean.
Thank you, and appreciate you making time for us this morning, for your support for transit over the years. And I'm going to turn it over to one of our planning consultants from RLS and Associates Consultants, Christy Campbell.
Hey, I'll get started. I will try to sort of stay on script just to make sure this doesn't go over long and beyond my allotted time. But I'm Christy, and I am from RLS in Dayton, Ohio. Oops, sorry. I've been the project manager for the Richland County Transit Development Plan. We've been working on this for the last year, and I'm really excited to come to the end of the process and share the results with you. So the Transit Development Plan, the TDP, or I'll just call it the plan, it's a 10-year plan. And the goal of the plan is to ensure that RCT provides the best service it can within its available resources. Next slide. This is a map of RCT's current service area and some of the places where RCT takes people to work, to medical care, to school, to shop for essentials. You can see this map in the brochure that they use. It's in a bigger version to advertise their route schedules. I'd like to note that they have a new map. So this is a new route map because they have made some service changes as an outcome of the TDP of the plan. You'll notice that the service area includes Mansfield as well as portions of Ontario and Madison Township. The bus routes, the lines on the map, are surrounded by a buffer that shows the dial-a-ride service area. And the dial-a-ride is provided to eligible customers with disabilities within 1 mile of any fixed route. Next slide. So our team conducted a very comprehensive data gathering process to inform the recommendations that we made. We have a final report that is forthcoming. There's also quite a few interim reports available on the plan website, which is rctvision.com. We looked at community demographics and economic activity as compared to where RCT serves today. We also reviewed RCT's current operations and made recommendations for cost efficiency as well as technology upgrades. After we created our draft recommendations, we presented them in 3 focus groups. We also conducted 3 project oversight committee meetings where community stakeholders came together to review our findings and provide some feedback. Next slide. We had a pretty robust public input process. There were several pieces. First, we conducted an onboard survey of current RCT customers about their experience with the service. We conducted a public survey about residents' current travel patterns and their opinions about public transit. We also surveyed local employers about the needs of their workforce regarding transportation. And we also conducted one-on-one and small group interviews with 22 local stakeholders, including government officials, human service agencies, and healthcare organizations and others. We spoke to every RCT driver and office staff member as well. Next slide. This is a slide just showing a little bit about the current ridership. And so the graph on the left is ridership levels starting in 2019, so the past 4 years. And you can see that there was quite a drop of about half in 2020 due to the COVID pandemic. And ridership has ticked up just a little bit since then, and it is reflecting nationwide patterns on city bus systems. The pie chart on the right shows a breakdown of the basic types of riders on RCT. About half are senior citizens and people with disabilities. About 40% are adults who are not disabled and are under 65. And then about 8% are children or students under 18. Next slide. So this is a slide, just a word cloud of the feedback given on the rider survey about the existing service. And I just want to point out that the riders that are using the service today, the ones that the service is working for, they give it high marks. 93% of them reported service overall as excellent or very good. And they provided an average score of 4.5 out of 5 for overall satisfaction.
I have a question on this slide.
Yes,
How does Daryl's name get in this slide?
he's one of the drivers.
Oh.
And so lots of driver compliments.
I'm Daryl.
They tend to come in on these surveys. So you have a few names up there. And I rode the service quite a bit when I was here. I interacted with the drivers. You have a great group of drivers who really care about the people.
I have a quick question on the previous
Yes.
slide from that one.
Yeah.
It's individual,
Oops. Hold
bar chart. It was individuals,
on.
not individual routes. It's individual people who rode.
The pie chart was a breakdown by age of riders.
The bar
The
chart.
bar chart was, okay,
Trips.
good question. One-way passenger trips. So that's basically every time somebody steps on a vehicle counts as a trip. So you had about 200,000 per year prior to the COVID pandemic. It went down. Oops.
How do I do
Your back arrow, does that
On your
work?
keyboard.
Hold on.
Oh, dear.
It's all the way. Let me get my mouse over. See, it's going forward.
There you go.
All right.
There, yeah.
Okay,
That's 200,000 one-way trips.
yes. In
Trips or in-
2019 boardings, one
Two
way.
people are on board, that's two.
This is 200,000 times somebody boarded the vehicle. So if you took a round trip to work, that would be 2 trips.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question. Okay, next slide, and then the one after that, I believe. Okay, so key unmet needs. Our overarching finding was that expanding RCT's hours of service in the geographical area served would make the system more useful to the community. Additional hours of service would go a long way to help more people use the service to get to work. Right now, it's not possible to use RCT to get to work for a second or third shift, or any shift that has any weekend hours. And then in terms of service area, Mansfield receives the most service, but there are destinations in Ontario, Madison Township, Lexington, and other areas where there are transportation needs.
What are the transportation needs in Madison? Is that 42 commercial area or is there another area?
Madison Township, going up that Ashland Road area, there's a lot of destinations on there. And then kind of going further out into the township, it's a little bit more dispersed. So we're actually not recommending extending the route out there, but providing we'll actually talk about that in a little bit. The Madison Adult Career Center is a big one. The library, there are some apartments, there's some weekly hotels where people with very low incomes live, things and other destinations.
I was gonna ask if,
Yeah,
if you extend the hours for the second and third shifts, as you mentioned, what roughly percentage of ridership would that represent? So extending into 24 hours
so
by 6% or?
let's hold that for the end because that'll be a good one to go into at the end. So let's hold that question. Thank you, though. Another thing I want to point out about unmet needs is that the fixed route system the routes operate every 60 minutes, okay? And oftentimes people have a 30-minute wait time at the transit center for their transfer. You typically don't take just one route, you typically need to transfer onto the next route. And so more frequency on the fixed routes, for example, if they came every 30 minutes, would be a lot more useful and reliable to the people who use the fixed routes. Next slide. Okay, so the plan consists of strategies that will be implemented in large part based on the ability to generate additional funding. We made several recommendations for changes to the routes and services that would be piloted and phased in over time, depending on available resources. A key part of the plan is to build new partnerships and collaborations to expand the capacity to meet more community needs. Next slide. So I'll talk first about strategies that RCT is actually deciding to implement like right now today. So we have a lot of recommendations for different periods of time over the next 10 years, but there are many things that RCT, being forward thinking and being entrepreneurial, they wanted to get started with right away. So in September, they actually started a 6-month pilot of route changes to improve efficiency and serve some new key destinations. So for example, one of the changes is to pilot the Ontario Circulator, which is the light blue route that you see on that map. We had found that RCT's existing routing made it very difficult for people to travel within the Lexington Spring Mill corridor, where there are many jobs and shopping and medical destinations. RCT also added on-call stops at FedEx and CNG on Route 9, which is the orange route, to expand access to employment opportunities at those locations. Next slide. Right now, RCT has a flag stop system, and that means people can flag down the bus at any point along the route. However, in 2024, they're going to transition to a designated bus stop system. This is going to be a lot more efficient and safe. Next slide. They are adding dial-a-ride service on a same-day basis, depending on availability and the dial-a-ride schedule. This is because they have technology that allows people to makes it easier to schedule a same-day trip request rather than waiting one day in advance. So that's a new thing that they're,
Day, the hell right.
It is
I'm sorry?
right now.
yes.
Yeah.
First time.
Space permitting, yes.
Didn't you dial a ride over here, Gene, from your office?
Well, I used active transportation, walked over, but
Does dial-a-ride really dial, or can
Oh,
you do
it's
it
a-
online? Can you reserve a?
it's a phone call at this point, but Christy will
That's one of
give you.
our
I have a
changes.
Question on the next
Yes.
slide on that, so,
Okay.
okay. How we doing with that? I know this has been a great challenge since I started.
So
Really
the
getting
board has signed the contract and for a new system called ETA Transit.
Okay,
And that would link not only with our own passenger app, but also Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Transit app. And will provide efficiencies on the back end as well. We're literally, the bus drivers are hashtagging it on clipboards, and we're having staff data entry at the end of every day, those amounts. So we'll be adding internal efficiencies as well as better passenger access.
Yeah, they really needed upgraded fixed route software, not only for the customer facing
Right.
app, but also just for efficiency. You know, this is going to help them reduce the number of labor hours in the office required to handle all of the data that is involved in operating fixed routes
where are we in this?
in acquiring the technology.
So it's been procured. We had 6, we vetted them all carefully, awarded the contract to ETA Transit. It's in legal right now. It's waiting for final.
Once we sign the contract, how long to implement this software?
They had one of the fastest turnarounds, about 8 weeks, to get it.
Really?
Exactly. That's what I thought. And actually, they're like, this is what we do every day. We have modules in place. They have certain things they'll do before they even come to town. They will test the equipment. They will come to town and test our Wi-Fi capabilities and everything.
Hey,
at them. So
So people will be able to know where the bus is.
exactly so. And if you're standing here and you want to know how to get to there, and it will include transit as part of your options. Yes.
What's the impact of Uber or Lyft? You smile when I said,
I just don't want
Right.
to, I don't want to make this too long. Uber or Lyft it has a big impact. I think it's changed people's
is it
expectations.
local? I don't even know.
Do you have Uber?
have left.
I've heard that you have some level of it. I think it probably,
Left.
We haven't flipped that.
Yeah.
No Uber.
You were my best test on that because you opened your app and we saw that there was one driver
That's right.
okay.
at
Yeah, yeah.
the time. So your dependability.
Yeah, that was some time.
Not
ago.
aware that there's a lot of drivers.
Good question. So, okay, next slide. Strategies also in process include enabling account-based fare payment for dial-a-ride so people can pay through an online account versus with cash or a paper pass. Next slide. RCT is expanding their capacity to provide contracted transportation service to provide transportation to meet the needs of specific organizations and their clientele. Next slide. They've also begun to write more funding applications and seek out new partnerships to provide more service to the community. This year alone, RCT has submitted 29 distinct competitive funding applications, maintained funding partnerships with 4 local governments and OSU and CSC, and contracted with dozens of community organizations to meet the needs of their clientele. They're a small and mighty team, and they need additional capacity in order to grow collaborations and revenue opportunities. Next slide. So I'll talk about the near-term strategies. These are strategies recommended for 2024 through 2026. We recommend 3 options for service, which would require new sources of local and federal funding. These are to add more schedules on Route 15 to the Airport Industrial Park, on-demand service in the early mornings and evenings, and on-demand service in downtown Mansfield on final Fridays. On-demand services would provide door-to-door trips on small vehicles, which would be more cost efficient than running fixed route bus service during off-peak hours where you currently don't have any service. Next slide. During the near term, RCT would begin to offer online trip scheduling for Dial-A-Ride and add a fare payment app for fixed route. Next slide. We also recommend that RCT refresh its branding, including replacing its bus stop signs. Next slide. We also recommend providing some temporary staffing support for planning and change management, as well as pursuing new sources of revenue. We identified 3 potential options in the near-term phase to generate revenue for expanded service hours and service to new locations. Okay, first, RCT could add future services to Shelby, Belleville, and rural areas of the county if it applied for federal rural transit funds. Also, some transit agencies in Ohio have worked with local governments to establish revenue districts to fund expanded service. However, to rise to the challenge of creating the kind of transit system that would truly help Richland County thrive, a source of dedicated local revenue would be necessary. Next slide.
That's it via a levy.
Mhm.
Something you,
That's something we recommend investigating the feasibility of doing, definitely. Midterm strategies. So these are options for implementation between 2027 and 2029. These include restoring service to Shelby. The Shelby route was discontinued in July due to low ridership and reduced support from the route's original funding partners. We also recommend providing some door-to-door service on Saturdays. A door-to-door service is a way to provide transportation at a lower cost than running the fixed routes on Saturdays. We also recommend providing an advanced reservation service to rural areas of the county. Next slide. The midterm strategies also include providing on-demand door-to-door service in 3 new areas of the county where we learned there is demand, but population density would not support efficient fixed routes. And these are East Mansfield, Madison Township, Lexington, and Belleville. I'm just going to show you an example of one of these service zones on the next slide. That is an on-demand zone for door-to-door service in Madison Township. People could request a ride within the zone, which includes a connection to the Route 7 fixed route at the Kroger store on Ashland. They could transfer to Route 7 and gain access to the whole fixed route network to get to where they want to go. Next slide. We also recommend putting more resources into marketing and travel training to promote the services in the new areas and educate the community about how to use them. Next slide. In 2029, we recommend conducting a 5-year update of the plan, including an evaluation of options that have been funded and implemented. This will allow RCT to determine whether the on-demand model, which it will have tested during off-peak hours and in new areas, is more effective than traditional fixed routes. This evaluation will inform decision-making about a longer-term operating model. Moving on to the next slide. The plan provides 4 long-term alternatives that would be implemented after the evaluation. Alternative 1 is to keep the new fixed route network that RCT began to pilot in September and retain the new on-demand service options, assuming that funding was identified and they were able to add those options. Next slide. Alternative 2 would be to retain the on-demand service options and increase frequency on the fixed routes from every 60 minutes to every 30 minutes. That would be the highest cost option, but it would make the fixed route network much more user-friendly because wait times and transfers would be much less burdensome. Next slide. Alternative 3 would be to retain the highest ridership of the fixed routes, creating what I call a spine network, and convert the lower ridership routes into on-demand service that would feed into the fixed routes. Alternative 4 would be to discontinue all fixed routes and provide 100% on-demand service. This would not increase ridership because fixed routes carry more passengers per hour of service than door-to-door on-demand service. However, it remains to be seen whether fixed route ridership will grow with the improvements recommended in this plan. We believe it will grow, but we won't know until we have actual data. It's possible that fixed route ridership will not grow and on-demand service will be popular. This table shows the year 2033, so 10 years from now in year 10 of the plan. These are what the projected costs and ridership levels would be for each of the four alternatives based on some assumptions. The orange row shows the amount of local match funding that would be needed for the federal dollars. We want to point out that even if we keep the system status quo and implement none of the strategies in the plan, RCT will still need more local match funding beyond what it receives today. Next slide. The plan has many attractive options that will give the community the level of transit service that we think it needs to thrive, but it will not happen without more partnerships and a commitment to make it happen. We believe this plan provides a roadmap for the community to come together and build a stronger transit system. And now I'm happy to answer any questions. And so you had asked one about,
Added hours, how would that impact the ridership?
okay,
Did you want to go to that one slide? Is that what you were referring to? Like the one before this, maybe?
we can do that. Yeah, that would make sense. So in terms of extending the hours, we're recommending that you do add some off-hours service on the Route 15, which is the one that goes up to the Airport Industrial Park. That's actually a pretty highly used route. It just has very limited hours of service right now. But other than that, our new hours services are all in the on-demand side of things. So it's like we didn't feel that we could recommend extending all of your fixed routes to go till like 9 or 10 at night, because that would be extremely expensive. But what we are saying is that try out some on-demand door-to-door type service that either requires a reservation or people can hail it on their phone. And because you're not going to have quite the level of demand that you have during the day during those hours, but you do need some coverage at that time, especially to get people to work. So
And that coverage represents what percent roughly? In other words, if you add those shifts, those additional
if you add those additional on-demand services,
6% ridership, 12% ridership.
So I haven't broken it down that way, but let's take a look up here at these options. So that alternative one, if you added a lot of those on-demand services, we wouldn't see a doubling in ridership, I don't think, but you'd see about we projected a 57% increase in ridership. So maybe let's say you're working with 100,000 rides, and I know you're doing more than that at this point. You would maybe go to 157,000 rides per year because you've added those on-demand services. The drawback with those services is that you can only get so many people per hour. Like if you run a fixed route down Park, lots of people are able to get on and off the vehicle. With on-demand service, there's kind of a cap on how efficient it can be in terms of riders per hour.
The demand, do you use different vehicles?
So yeah, you wouldn't use the big fixed route buses. Right now RCT does have cutaways, so those smaller buses, but actually we are recommending that RCT acquire like the 12-seat very small transit vehicles or even minivans to operate this type of service. And you have a couple
12 passengers.
Yeah, 12 passengers entering into the fleet.
So you're looking at 2030 as potential implementation dates for these alternatives then?
Yeah, basically you would
Right.
spend, yes, the next 6 years adding those services kind of in a piecemeal fashion as funding allows. And then you would be doing an evaluation in 2029 to inform, if you think, yeah, that was on the right track, we're going to go with alternative one with that model that we've developed over the years. But you may find that you want to put more resources into fixed route and double frequency, or you may find this on-demand service is taking off, or we're not seeing the ridership growth that we hope for on the fixed routes. And so we are targeting for deciding and settling on a long-term model in 2030.
So has the transit board made decisions on which alternatives they want to implement yet at this time. So that's more of a Gene and Jodica question, probably.
Well, the transit board approved the 6-month pilot of new routes, which really shout out to our operations team. They really felt that they wanted to move that forward even faster than our implementation. So they've approved all of the procurements and the capital plan to date. We're working on the budgets, capital budgets for 2024. So some of, for example, to implement demand response needs a certain type of technology. So they're pretty much on board with the plan. We're meeting again as a whole today to kind of really, now that we've seen all the pieces and we've looked at each of the levels and details, what do we think about the big picture is really the focus of our 2.5 hours this afternoon with the board. But pretty much they've been involved and informed and supportive of all the work we've been doing and engaged, providing input of guiding these alternatives in themselves.
So then the question always becomes with the new changes, will there be additional asks from a budgetary perspective since commissioners are the budgetary authority?
There will be additional asks.
Do we have a ballpark and how much those asks will be?
So what we've done in the plan is actually you can price out these individual services. So, to add everything, it would be a lot of asks. That's why we're recommending actually that Gene put some effort into exploring some of those revenue possibilities to take a look at, what options might be out there. But, for example, the county may get excited about that rural advanced reservation service. You may decide that your priority for funding could be in that camp, or you may decide, you're really interested in this technology piece. The plan gives Gene the ability to put prices on all of these things so that, the board of the transit system and you all can work together to prioritize and decide.
Just pick up on that, Craig. She talked a long time, didn't answer the question.
I can't, so, yeah, there are, I would.
So let me ask this then. And I am supportive of transit, so I'm not saying, obviously, these are good changes, right?
Mhm.
So let's ask it in terms of the pilot program. So you guys are looking at a 6-month pilot program of these changes. Will there be an increase ask as a result of implementing the pilot program?
Well, there was a slight bump in the request for 2024 compared to 2023. It matched the percentage of federal increase. So the feds increased about 30%. And so that's asked for a little bit under 30%, which brought our total request from the general revenue funds up to $90,000. Is that going to cover these additional changes? Not really. That's really all going as one of the cups in the bucket, if you will, towards our operating expenses under the status quo model. So where else were we going with that question, Tony?
Okay, so all right, so yeah, you bumped it up 20 grand, but that matches federal, so that's.
Right. One thing that the county can really do, and I've met with some partners already in the Ontario area to generate interest and knowledge of the new circulator, the new places we hit out there. Would love to have the county help us, be a cheerleader and help us, organize partners and.
On Ontario council meetings, remember that, Jodica?
Not saying she's not coming back from.
Right.
Hold that thought.
Let's all
Hold
get
that
around the
thought.
table and.
Increased request from the city, and I say that just because that seems to be the vast majority of ridership is city-based riding. So has there been an increased request from other local partners as well?
We're going to be speaking with the city tonight. And yes, we do intend to build those bridges. As you know, the city used to provide funds through their general revenue funds prior to the Great Recession, if you will. And lately they've been funding just the dial-a-ride portion only.
Right, they don't give any GRF funds
No, through
in the request
the
of
HUD.
GRF.
Exactly.
Exactly.
They do it
So
through,
we do have new leadership in town and we're very much interested in building new relationships with our new leaders.
And to add to that, Jean, I think some of the partnerships that Chris kind of alluded to on the contracting side, I think that a lot of that can happen with county agencies, so helping us bridge those and.
so will there be a request for city GRF dollars?
Well, yes, I was told that the temporary budget, which as you know, normally, you would know, is normally the budget, and that's the one you want to get into, but that they were expecting the temporary budget to kind of not,
So fast, we don't do a temporary budget, we do a budget.
well,
Yes.
on the city side, they passed their temporary budget, so we'll be involved with the new mayor and
So you're gonna wait for the new mayor and the new council to take.
the new finance director and all that. Yep, yep.
So then what will be the increase ask of the new mayor and the new council?
I don't have that put together yet in a proposal, so we'll sit down and roll up our sleeves together, Tony. You can come with me.
They're good guys. They know how to answer the questions.
Gallery, Andrew back here, Gene.
Yes,
There's 30% federal increase.
yes.
Can you translate that to dollars and cents? for
So we
RC?
would normally receive about a little under 1.1 million was prior to the bipartisan infrastructure law. And then with the change there, recognizing that transit has challenges with, fuel and wages are big expenses for us. So they bumped that to about $1.4 million.
For 2024.
That's the formula allocation. That's based on the population of our urban area. Since we are urban funded, urban funding, it's a formula based. Three main things is population, the population of low to moderate income, and I think the other one is
Density.
density, yes.
So if fuel prices stay depressed for a time, hopefully, with that increase, does your board have plans for how to use that additional funding?
Believe it or not, it's all
Yeah.
being absorbed by increased operating costs. We have a new union contract go in and we have
Inflation.
all kinds of things. So we did, however, get $824,000 at 100% federal to replace some of our revenue vehicles. We're searching funds to replace our roof, which is leaking and obviously is important to protect that very valuable asset. We've got funding requests into the state, one of the 29 discrete funding opportunities that Christie alluded to. So let's just say if that roof doesn't come through for us from the state and they have the ability to award some federal capital funds as well, we would definitely need to have a conversation. I don't feel like we should let that wait this through,
Well, and the county does.
not go by without addressing.
We're looking at apples to apples. It's not like the county doesn't participate in non-GRF dollars too, right? So JFS has a lot of dollars that go to transportation. So
Exactly.
not trying to encourage the city. I know every government agency is different, so we try to stay out of that pool, but hopefully that,
Yes.
for true apples to apples, that they'll maybe contribute some GRF dollars to it. Not
To the point
saying they should or shouldn't, just
Nordica mentioned is we would like to serve more counties, agencies that have other pots of money that need to transport folks. And Christie, one of the unspoken things that they did, one of the really literally thousands of pages of documents they provided included a new contract service contract. So we have more guardrails and we're ready to roll on those kinds of things.
And I wanted to give a shout out to Jean. If there's money out there in the federal or state landscape, she is going after it. I mean, the amount of success she's had in procuring funds for transit has been phenomenal. We've been able to replace a lot of our capital aging assets because of that.
Yes, and with the bipartisan infrastructure law out there, now is the time to go for those kinds of things. It's an unprecedented investment. We have 30 years that we haven't really been able to invest in roof and painting and things at the facilities that we want to address.
where we've talked about this before, like special events like incarceration that brings in thousands. And correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like they contract out with other busing companies where they bring people in. Is that something that RCT could fill that need and potentially get some revenue from that?
Well, it's an interesting line to walk when you have other entities, like, can they come in and pay us per head to move people around? That's charter service and we're prohibited from doing charter service. But could we offer, say, fixed routes going through the community during an event like that? Or even demand response as we might do for Final Friday? That is something that we could do. And but it's trickier than having, it's easier for us to do it if they don't pay for it. Is that crazy?
So like if let's say people are staying down in the Belleville corridor there on 97 and some of the hotels, they might pay a fare instead of driving and finding parking.
Yeah, I mean, just to give an example, I live over in roughly in that northeast quadrant. And I saw people charging $20 to drive you on their golf cart up 545 from, up Newman Street or up Wayne Street. And people pulling wagons with water and coolers on them. So definitely you see a lot of transportation need around that festival. How we can do that and not get in the trouble of the charter laws, that actually could make it more costly for us, but we're looking at options. We felt like Final Friday was a good toe in the water because it would be our first chance doing on demand. So we do where you can call same day appointments, but on demand is usually like, hey, we'll get there as soon as we can. It might be a half hour. So it would be even faster than same day appointments. And this first Friday would be Final Friday actually would be our first experience at that. We'd have, an evening, and then we could have 4 weeks and test it again. So as we build our capacity, our technology to be able to do that, our drivers and vehicles to be able to be there at those times, yes, all of that would be a board decision.
Okay. One more question. Tony had asked about that mobile technology. Is that where someone will be able to like see a little bus on an app and know
Absolutely.
how far away they are?
Yeah, so we did have that technology in the past, and the company went through several mergers and have not been reliable. And so we're basically turning off the old system and we'll be starting up a new system. You'll see a branded app for RCT. But if you just like to go into a new city and pull up Google Maps or Apple Maps, we'll be there too. And transit app, if you're an avid transit user, you probably have that one on your phone already too.
Okay.
And that I would say it's not only to know when to get out go out to the bus stop and catch the bus, but also just how to plan your route to get from A to B. So those are kind of two big functions.
Anything else?
You guys have been really, really attentive and helpful, and I really love the questions we're getting.
Well, we're glad you're where you're at,
Thank you.
and
Appreciate your support, and we'll come more often and be sure to keep you updated on what's going on.
Mobility is such an important component of anybody's lifestyle, and that's a service you provide. So it's I see it as something that's really essential that provides opportunities for so many residents in Richland County. So
Absolutely.
the way you're innovating and looking at the changes and suggestions and opportunities. So
One trend I think you might want to know, I talked to Mayor Hutchinson about it, that out in the county where most of our dial-a-ride was from the city, almost, 95+%. We had a 290% increase in the Ontario dial-a-ride ridership from September 2022 to September 2023. We were normally around like,
Just wait till the Raising Cane's comes in.
everybody's going to want to move. But it just says that as our housing and that new housing, that's one level, that's senior friendly, as our housing moves from old homes in Mansfield to condos and other places around the county, our people are going to need a way to get to their appointments, to, especially dialysis. My own father had 7 kids and 2 cars, and he needed dial-a-ride so he could get to dialysis 3 days a week. Just think about, the trends of the future. We're getting older, and I think that beats the alternative of not getting older. So
Don't remind me.
Carl has a question.
Carl, what you got?
Oh, several questions. Christy, Jean, if we can go back a couple of years when we first, Christy, when I met you and Jean, when you and I started talking about RCT and transit in the future. Christy, one of the things you said is that public awareness is a key component for a successful transit system. Jean, you said, in my dream world, the North Star is where everybody in the community gets it and they understand the value of public transit. What in this 10-year plan helps ensure that those goals are met, public awareness and that people get public transit?
Yeah, so one of the things that they have already done is they added a position like a compliance and grants management assistant for Jean. So Jean can direct some energy into that very thing, marketing and public awareness. With Jean managing all the grants and all of the compliance oversight, it just wasn't going to happen in the way that it needs to happen. So we've opened up some of Jean's capacity. We've also included some costs in the near-term strategies of basically marketing consulting, rebranding, basic marketing expenses, some added funding for those costs because it definitely needs some attention.
And just to give you an idea, and appreciate your following us all along, Carl. What we did last week, for example, we were out at the campus meeting with students because this new Ontario circulator, really one of the impetuses was to make it easier for students to get to jobs and shopping and destinations on the Lexington Spring Mill corridor, which they told us is where they wanted to go quite directly. So we went to the campus and met with students. We've been in conversations with the food pantry, the housing units, and having flyers and bus schedules in those places. But it's one thing to put information, to have a marketing ad pop up on your screen or a piece of mail come across. And it's another thing to have a friend tell you this is a good way to go. And so that's why we feel like person to person, getting into the groups, the groups that serve the disabled, that serve folks that have no transportation on campus. It's just one example of, in addition to marketing and in addition to a website that is more clear and has more value to it than ever before, we also want to do that person to person, really person to organization outreach, so that when we talk to 1 or 3, that gets multiplied out and they tell 3 friends and they tell 3 friends and so on. So great question.
Well, yeah, and Jean, make sure you talk to the county commissioners, especially Mr. Vero, about marketing, because there is a county branding campaign and they've got videos coming out. It'd be nice to see an RCT bus somewhere in one of those future videos. But
Yes.
that's between you and Tony.
Okay.
That's a
Going
good
back-
idea, Carl. I will
Yeah.
get with DRM on the potential larger branding video and we'll see what we can do.
You know me, I'm all about good ideas. Clint Knight during the process, I remember one of the quotes he gave me that stuck with me was, we have to make sure we're not creating solutions for problems that don't exist. Christy, Jean, are both of you comfortable that in this 10-year plan, there's nothing in there that's creating solutions for problems that don't exist?
Yeah, I'm absolutely confident in that because I can't recommend you spend valuable resources on solutions that aren't targeting a problem that exists. We're already looking at, asking for additional funding for some good solutions. I think the bottom line need that I heard the most was we're not really able to support our workforce with the current system as we have it today. Even people who work a standard first shift job, depending on how the bus schedule works and where exactly the route goes, it doesn't even work for all of them. And you have, a lot of great manufacturing employment in this county. A lot of those are running second and third shifts. people who don't have cars just can't take those jobs unless they are scrounging around for taxi fare or family and friends. And so, you know, all of these added services or technological enhancements, you know, to me, one of the guiding, you know, principles was, can we help get more people to work in the county? So you know, that's my take on it.
I kind of like the thought that if transit is convenient, leave your car at home, save money.
Exactly.
With transit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, having like that more, you know, coverage into like later hours or on weekends, going to more areas of the county, you know, you'll make it possible for, you know, a family of 5 to maybe rely on one car instead of 2. Or to take some trips in the evening where maybe somebody prefers not to drive, you know, they're going to dinner.
Expensive.
Yes.
You know, people getting to medical appointments who live in Belleville or Lexington. You know, there's a lot of different types of needs that are addressed by the recommendations in the plan.
Well, when I was growing up 100 years ago,
They didn't have buses, they had buggies.
no, we did have a bus that ran
No,
from
there were-
Mount Vernon to Mansfield
Right.
every day. And the people who work at Tappan's and Westinghouse, which I realize aren't there, but they got on the bus and car in the parking lot down in Belleville, and the people of Butler and Belleville took the bus to work.
Yep.
And that's something that ODOT is very interested in, looking at regionalization. And we are the only urban transit system, you know, in all our surrounding counties are rurals. They have different abilities. So, you know, we could definitely be a hub, as some of our research at regional planning has shown, that we have lots of folks coming into the county for needs for, you know, business and for medical, et cetera. We are certainly a hub, and we could serve more of a role in cross-county boundaries. There is one GO bus does come through twice a day here, and it takes folks over to Worcester and then Columbus. It's not a great schedule for commuting to work every day, though. We're
Well,
with them.
people in the rural areas are so used to having a car and
Right.
going, you know, a variety. And when you drive by a house and they got 4 cars, you know, they got teenagers.
Mhm.
And so it's a hard, I think we're going to move a little that way, but I'm not sure enough to be able to fund it going a bus to Belleville.
Well, that's why that's something that is, you know, as far as the question, is it a solution in favor, looking for a need? I would say that the need will drive that this particular option. And I think of what Christy and their team have put together is a menu of options, and the ones that resonate and the ones that say, we need people at our workplaces, they're not here, and we need them from other more populated areas of the county. Or we need to give people emergency medical treatments and non-emergency medical treatments, I should say. So those that partnerships that say there is a need, we are committed, we are with you. Those are the ones that we'll see going forward.
If we could talk just a minute, my ears always perk up when I hear the word levy getting tossed around. How would a levy effort work that would create dedicated funding for RCT? Is that something that, and Andrew, Tony, I don't know what the attorneys in the room, does that come through county commissioners similar to other agencies, or how would that work?
That's not something we've looked at to date, Carl. But at this point, the commissioners are the taxing authority for many countywide levy campaigns.
Not all.
So that, you know, in my sense, this is something looking out within the next 10 years. It's something, though, you want to do something, you know, you don't snap your fingers and make it happen in 10 weeks or less. So it's part of the long-term vision. I definitely, you saw the numbers, even if we keep the status quo, that's $1.5 million raised locally. So subtract the 90,000 from the county commissioners, that's still over $1.4 million to raise. It's a pretty big lift. And we have to raise at least that, or we would have to cut services. So it's something certainly to keep in mind. And, every year is a fresh year. It's a door you gotta knock. Every single door needs to be knocked the next year. Whereas with the levy, it's over a certain period of time. You have a planning horizon. You can see, what your funding situation is gonna look on a more sustainable basis. In 2019, before, let's face it, I think the pandemic, as terrible as it was, the funding that resulted from CARES funding and ARPA, it was our lifeline. I'm not ashamed to say I took over in 2020, and when I sat down to do the audit, I saw that our dollars in the bank was $19 in the bank at the end of 2019. And it was only through CARES and ARPA that we've been able to put any side of funding in to have a little bit of breathing room. But we had just cut services in 2019 because we just didn't have enough funds. So luckily, right now, we're okay. This year, we're looking for additional support as we go forward. So I don't see that you will see, Carl, to that extent, a levy go on the November ballot. That's pretty much not going to happen in 2024. But the conversations, I think, are worth having. What kind of sustainability do we want for our transportation system? How will our county look like, with possibly Intel and being a supply chain for Intel and for some of the big developments in Ohio? What will our needs look like, and how will we need to get people to work, to dialysis, and just throughout the community?
Right, and finally, I guess if we could talk about ridership for a minute, I think back, it peaked in 2013. I think it's about 280,000 rides. By 2020, it fell off to like 104,000 during the pandemic. What did it finish in 2021? What was the ridership in 2022, and what are you seeing in 2023?
We were under 100,000 in 2021. We were about 111 in 2022. I'm figuring we'll be haven't recently done a projection, but 2 or 3 months ago, I was figuring we'd be at about 120 to 125,000. We're getting better rebound on the fixed route side, but unfortunately on the dial-a-ride side, we literally lost a lot of passengers during the pandemic. So we are rebuilding those regular ADA paratransit users on the dial-a-ride side, which is only about 10% of our ridership as a whole.
I'm just trying to remember, Gene, whether we ever talked about it. It seems odd that 280,000 in 2013, and 10 years later, it's less than half. What was going on in 2013? And Christy, you might know this, being in the business. What was going on 10 years ago that so much more public transit was being used than today?
If I could jump in quickly, and you can speak on the trends, we had service cuts and we reduced routes since then.
Yeah. So I know in 2019, at the beginning of 2019, there was a reduction in your services. So that had an impact.
Right.
And then also there was a nationwide decline. And I believe it's mostly attributed just to like economic recovery during that era. I know the census will tell you that zero vehicle household levels actually sort of dropped gradually over the 2010s. People acquired more vehicles and rode buses less. So that's similar, around the country for bus systems. But those 29 service cuts and then the pandemic were really a double whammy.
Okay, that's all I needed. I'm sure we'll do more going forward. Thank you both very much.
For your interest. You have
Hey,
another-
Carl, if you're interested, it's their time. I revised code section 5739.023.
Okay, I was looking at 5741.022 Transit Authority Levy.
Okay, there's another one then. Okay.
Okay, yep.
Okay, thank you.
I'm always looking, Andrew.
Very good.
Okay. Al, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
Nothing else, Greg? Okay.
Well,
Thank you for taking an hour to talk about transit. I just really appreciate that. That's awesome.
Yes.
Thanks for all your good questions and for listening and giving us all.
For all the hard work you put into this very valuable service.
Thank you. Awesome. And shout out to Christy. She's really nailing all that together for us.
All right, let's move on to other agenda items.
Thank you.
I have a motion to certify the record of proceedings for November 30th.
Move.
Second, Steve, I'll give you on some grammatical things.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes,
Can I have a motion to approve requisitions?
so moved.
Second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Vero.
Yes,
I have a motion to approve transfer and appropriation request.
Yes.
second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes,
We have a couple of items for L2. We have a change order to approve. There's some additional work that needed to be done to the amount of 44,500, which increases the total contract sum to $1,604,500. Could I have a motion to approve that change order number 1?
so moved.
Second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Yes,
Connected to that is the amended notice of the ARPA award for L2, which changes the amount only. Could I have a motion to approve that?
so moved.
Second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes,
And child support would like to have a Christmas luncheon December 6th from 11:30 to 1:30. Could I have a motion to approve that?
Move.
second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes,
And we have had some changes in the building department. A couple of contracts that have lapsed from some time ago were agreements with master plans examiner. The first of those is with the Oak Group as master plans examiner. It's an as needed basis. So could I have a motion to approve that?
so moved.
Second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Banks.
Yeah.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes,
And the second of those contracts has a master plans examiner, it's Dave Dickey Design. That motion to approve that one.
So move.
second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes,
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes,
I should probably mention that Amanda Miller has joined us. We are here to certify the monthly delinquent sewer bills for, I have a motion.
So move.
second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes,
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes,
and can I have a motion to approve the wastewater quarterly overtime resolution? We do this quarterly.
so moved.
Second.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes,
And for Josh's interest, could we have a motion to approve the building maintenance overtime for snow removal?
So move.
Mears.
Yes.
Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
yes.
Do we have any other business at this time before the public auction for the Dayspring farmland? Well, we can go into recess for 2 minutes till 10:30.
I've got a question on those master plan contracts.
Yeah,
Is this partly a temporary move to,
No, no, Al, we've been doing this for several years. These two companies, just when we get overwhelmed, we have somebody to back up our building codes department.
okay, but is it also a stopgap at this point too, or just strictly that continuation that you were talking about,
It's
Daryl?
the continuation.
yeah, the contracts had lapsed and we decided we should keep them current call, but whether we need them or not, we'll see how the workload demands. Right now.
Okay, yeah. I do remember, when you originally did those and the purpose, so that's
Guys up there. Can you
that's
bring
fine.
them in?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Carl, anything on that business?
No, sir, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. You didn't have anything, did you? So, our recess is over now.
Amanda just went to go get the people that are,
Oh, okay.
why they're not in here.
It's like farmland for lease, or is this for sale? The eight other thought.
3-year lease? Well, it's a 3-year lease, yeah.
9.5.
It's like church, nobody likes to sit up front.
You don't get to come in unless you bring ice cream.
Missed it the last time.
I know I was in Ireland, so trust me, your food was infinitely better than anything they serve in Ireland. Trust me on that.
The ice cream, right?
Anything.
Well, it is 10:30 a.m. and it's time for the public auction. I wish I could speak like an auctioneer, but I never could speak that quickly. I tangle myself with my regular paper. So what we're here to talk about is the 109.5 acres out of the Dayspring property. We're here to look at a 3-year lease beginning January 1st, 2024. That extends until December 31st, 2026 with a 2-year renewal option. Are there any questions before we start?
Could you clarify section 9 there on the lease?
Oh, here.
Can I refer to you? Yeah, do you have a copy of the lease? Section 9 reads as not assign this lease under let said premises or any part thereof.
You ask any specific questions you might have about that section?
So can I bid on the property today and sublease it to someone else?
Not according to the current terms of.
Okay, good question. Any other questions before we start?
I'd like have everybody put their name on the record before you.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. What am I thinking? We'll go around the room and identify yourselves for the record, your name and if you represent a farm. I'll start with you, young lady.
Kathy Wolf.
Don McCarron. Michael Kuchendorfer, bidding on behalf of John Kuchendorfer.
Evan Kamnick with Kamnick Brothers.
Do you need spellings on any of that, Stacy?
No, I have them.
Okay. So I'd like to start the bidding at $195 an acre, which I believe is where we were with the current lease. Yeah, but
$195
$195 an acre. Okay. How many bids? 195. Why not?
You're supposed to do it in auctioneer voice.
Yeah, that's right. I can't.
I got $5.
practice.
Yeah, we're just supposed to do that.
We do have a bid for 195. Do I have, what is the typical?
You're the auctioneer, pal. I
Go to a higher number.
Okay, let's go to $5 increment, $200 an acre. Do I have a bid at $200 an acre? Yes, sir. Okay. We have a bid at $200 an acre. For $205 an acre. $205 an acre. Okay, we're at 205. Okay, we have a bid for $205 an acre for the 3-year term. I have a bid for $210 an acre. No. I have 210. Okay, I'm at 210. I'm at $210 an acre for 3 years. I have a bid for $215 an acre. Okay, we're at 215.
I think that was the same guy. Okay,
And then in the gray shirt, right?
yeah.
Okay, at 215. Okay. Could I have a bid for $220 an acre? 109.5 acres for 3 years. Or 215.
I'll do 220.
220. Okay. Can I have a bid for $225 an acre? $225 an acre it is so far. Can I have a bid for 230? We're at $225 an acre for 109.5 acres, 3 years. We're at 225. Can I have a bid for 230? $230 an acre. Once. Okay. I have a bid for $230 an acre. The gentleman in the front. We're $230 an acre. Could I have a bid for $235 an acre? 235 it is. Okay, so we're at 235 right now. Could I have a bid for $240 an acre? Bay Spring, 109.5 acres, 3 years. With a 2-year option renewal, so this could go to 5 years. We're $235 an acre. Could I have a bid for $240 an acre? $240 an acre? Anyone? Okay, I'm at $240 an acre. Okay, we're $240 an acre. Can I have a bid for $245 an acre? 245 it is right now. Okay, we're $245 an acre. Could I have a bid for $250 an acre? We're $245 an acre.
I'll do 250.
250? Okay, we're $250 an acre. Again, it's 109.5 acres, 3 years, possible 5, including the 2-year renewal. We're $250 an acre right now. We have bid for $255 an acre. We're $255 an acre. Could I have a bid for $260? Anyone interested in $260 an acre?
I'll do 260.
We have a bid for, so we're now at $260 an acre for 109.5 acres. We are at $260 an acre. Anybody interested in the $265 an acre? 265 we are. Okay. We're currently $265 an acre. Could I have a bid for $270 an acre? $170 an acre? 109 acres, 109.5 acres, 3 years, 2-year possible extension. We're $265 an acre. Again, request for $270 an acre. We're $265 an acre going once, $265 an acre going twice. Okay. $265 an acre. Done, sold. If I had a gavel, I'd $265 an acre.
Was that to
Thank you
John?
all for coming and participating.
So if you stick around, sir, I believe we probably have some paperwork that needs to be, thank you all very much for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, fine. Okay, is there any other business to come before the Board of Commissioners at this time?
I've got a question on the auction.
Yeah.
Anybody know how that this winning bid compares to, going rate for land rental in Richland County?
I can't answer that. I can say that we were currently at $195 an acre, which I mentioned earlier, but I don't know what the current going rate is.
Yeah,
Unless
that's
you
what
tell
I'm,
me.
Anybody?
Yeah,
Between 220 to 290.
okay. So we're right, pretty much in the middle of that range.
Oh.
Yeah, well, thank you for that.
yeah, and who was had the winning bid?
You,
John, Karen. Johnny Mac.
John McCarron.
How do you spell that?
MCCARRON.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
Okay, anything, Carl?
No, sir, I'm good.
Well, again, thank you for coming. Hearing no other business, the Richland County Board of Commissioners stands adjourned at 10:39 a.m.
Please, please.